What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all having a great day. And if you're new to the channel too and want to hit the subscribe button, that would help me out immensely. We are 7 days away before my brother and I leave to San Diego, California to pick up the RB25 Neo, and I'm incredibly stoked. But in today's video, my brother and I will be driving up to Phoenix, Tempe area, which is about an hour and a half away, to pick up all of my fueling parts that I ordered from Albert. Again, give him a shout out, give him a follow, hit him up if you are local for all your RB, JZ, or fueling turbo needs. And on the topic of the Neo, we did get some new parts. I guess, yeah, you would call this a part all the way from the United Kingdom. And from the United Kingdom, we have a turbo and external wastegate blanket. Thank you to Funk Motorsports for the awesome customer service and speedy shipping. So if you haven't guessed it already, yes, we are going with a brand new turbo setup that is externally gated. More information when the product ships, but I had to get this because the turbo we're running is much bigger than the turbo that I last had on my RB20, as well as the wastegate. My first external wastegate setup, so I'm incredibly stoked on that. I have plans on routing it back into the exhaust for a better note. Don't want anything too loud, but I want something really aggressive. Went with their carbon fiber blanket series. I was looking at titanium, but the color was a little bit too yellowing for my taste, and this is a nice black, and I think it will blend very nicely with all the parts that we have going on in the bay. So incredibly stoked on that. This will definitely reduce a lot of the temperatures from the turbo side, and it's just gonna look phenomenal as well. I also do need to go to Harbor Freight to pick up another engine stand for the Neo, since this one here is really just for, what do you want to call it, aesthetic reasons, that I will eventually be tearing down to see what the pistons and the head looks like. Without further ado, let's go ahead and run to the shop. All right, first stop, gas station. Snack haul, what we get? Vitamin water, Refresh, Quest bar, and even more caffeine. What'd you get?
Why are you intruding my privacy?
What you got? Planters peanuts, all right, good snack. Another protein bar. This one look good. Coffee shop, all right. Oof.
Make sure you're hydrated, all right? We don't want that color when it comes out of your pee-pee.
All right, Warren and I just made it here. I think we're here, right? We got a pretty ball looking KA. I'm not too sure if he's comfortable with us filming, but I'll go ahead and ask him. All right, so unfortunately, Hopper's going through some medical things, but we did pick up the parts. The shop was super clean, super dope. I guess the shop does like aerospace technology and all that good stuff. Awesome shop. We have a lot of work to do now on the RB25 Neo. I can't wait to mock up these parts. The fuel rail we might need to return because I initially bought the fuel rail to fit the 25 Neo, but since I bought a Series 1, Series 2 Grady intake plenum, it may or may not fit, but we will know that once we get home. We are back home safe and sound. Thank you, Albert, for all the fueling parts. I will be fitting the rail to make sure that the RB25 Neo fuel rail fits the RB25 Series 1 or 2 Grady intake plenum. Cross my fingers it does. I don't see why it wouldn't, but then again, two different generations. We did also go to Harbor Freight. I got myself a multi-use transfer pump for the gasoline. Also went ahead and picked myself up a nice digital torque wrench. Goes from 5 to 100 pounds. That's all I really need. And also picked up another engine stand for the 25 Neo. I will be working on here in the garage as much as I want to work on it in my room. Want to have some time spent in the garage. So right now, real quick, I'm gonna test the transfer pump on the Skyline, go inside, and we'll begin reviewing the parts and test fitting the fuel injectors and the fuel rail. Harbor Freight pump is working fantastic. Some of you might be thinking just power probe the fuel pump to pump it out, but unfortunately I don't have a fuel pump with me, so I'm just using this doohickey. Ran me like $7, but this is the color of my gasoline. Again, you don't want your urine looking like this, so stay hydrated. But this gas has been sitting in the Skyline for almost 2 years now, and Really can't use it because I was just going to use it on one of the dailies, but unfortunately we cannot. So now I need to pump almost a full tank of gas out of the Skyline, which I think is about 13 or 15 gallons. Just pumped out 11 gallons of gas. Thank you to my brother. This thing works wonders. This honestly took less than 10 minutes. Can't really see too well in here, but the gas tank honestly looks really good. Other than the gasoline being yellow, the tank is still essentially rust-free, but still going to drop it and get it cleaned out. All right, got the fueling products laid nicely on the table. Let's go ahead and open them up. And here we have about 80% of our fuel system. Again, a huge shout out to Albert for taking care of me with this. Starting from the left to right side, we have our ID Injector Dynamics 1050cc injectors that are E85 compatible. We have 2 fuel pressure sensors, or any pressure sensors, from Zaytronics. On the right side here, we do have our radium fuel rail, which is very nice. Again, I'm going to mock this up after this clip. Make sure it fits with the RB25 Neo. Well, this is for an RB25 Neo, but I'm not too sure if this is compatible with the Ready intake manifold because that's for a Series 1 or 2. We have our radium fuel damper, which essentially stabilizes fueling at high RPMs. The accommodating hoses, radium fuel pressure regulator, soaked on that. Again, the accommodating fittings. And then here we have our D-Torx 400 pump. This should supply us with more than enough fuel. I'm not worried about this piece. And again, the accommodating fittings and hoses. Up next, I just need to order some AN lines, 6 AN hoses, and a D-Torx Micron universal fill filter. All right, so unfortunately, bad news, which I was sort of anticipating. The RB25 Neo fuel rail does not fit the Series 1, Series 2 Ready intake plenum. As you can see, all the injector passages line up. Even one of these mounting brackets is lined up, but there's no mounting bracket for the center, and when everything's lined up, this is slightly off. And I tried different orientations, but unfortunately it is not going to work. So Albert's going to go ahead and order me a new rail. I'll just return this and return to this mock-up in a week or so. So the correct rail will actually be here in 3 days. So 3 days for me, about 2 clips for you guys. Oh no. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and install our DW400 fuel pump. And now it is time to install our beefy DW400 pump. So I mocked everything up, everything fits as it should, except for the pickup tube, which I was told just to go ahead and cut about 1.5 inches off the pickup tube, clean it up and use a flare tool to kind of make that flare, as you see there. And we can just run the fuel line and it shouldn't be an issue. Then we have our connector here with 3 wires, positive, a ground, and we have this other ground wire. I was told just to tap it in with the original ground to the original wires, and essentially that will be our fuel setup. I'm incredibly stoked to run this E85 compatible, and man, can't wait to start building our fuel system once we have the 25 Neo into the Skyline. Alright, got the big juicy DW400 pump wired up and installed. Again, for the pickup tube, I did cut about 1.25 inches off and then secured it nicely with this fuel hose and pretty tightly on the pickup tube side with the clamp, filter sock on, nice and wired up professionally. What I used were these johns here. They have some like solder in the middle, so it ensures a nice tight connection. And then I put some ink sheet on these. Did this on my last setup and didn't have an issue, but I'm incredibly stoked to run this pump. Again, E85 compatible, and I'm curious to know how loud this pump is. We are back. Yesterday after work, I went straight to Phoenix and picked up the correct radium fuel rail from Albert. Again, a huge shout out to Albert for helping me with all this. So at this time, I'm going to go through a little step-by-step on how to install this 25 Series 1, Series 2 rail into your Ready intake plenum. First, we're going to go ahead and install our damper and also our fuel pressure regulator. Then we'll go ahead and install our 14mm convergence seats with the accommodating hardware. with the accommodating spacers for your injectors. Okay, so first I'm gonna go ahead and install our fuel damper into our radium fuel rail. Should just go in like so, and then we'll go ahead and torque this down. Next, we'll go ahead and install our fuel pressure regulator. This is a 8 AN orb that adapts to a 6 AN, so let's go ahead and plug in the 6 AN fitting like so. And then tighten it where the O-ring is nice and sealed. And to get this fitting tight, you're gonna want to use a 8 Torx. Let's go ahead and install our fuel pressure regulator into our rail. There we go. And this will spin freely, so you can mount in whatever is convenient to you for your setup. And then we'll go ahead and get this side nice and tight. And now to get your 90 fitting on the bottom of your fuel pressure regulator is going to be a 4mm Allen. We'll get that nice and tight too. All right, and then again, this bottom piece should move freely. Nice. So far, so good. Next, we're gonna go ahead and install our injector seats. Again, these convert your injectors to 14mm. But before you do so, what I recommend doing is cleaning the fuel injecting ports, whether you're running a Greddy, a Freddy, or the stock RB25 intake manifold. You can use that with some brake clean, compressed air, and a microfiber towel. And also what we're gonna do is grease up the O-ring here on the adapter to ensure we get a nice seal, it doesn't corrode, and also we don't tear this because it will be a bad time. I don't have any lubricant on me right now, but the instruction manual did say you could use some motor oil, so I'm just using some clean motor oil. I'm going to install it on the O-ring like so. And then these should just press right in. Next up, I'm gonna go ahead and install our nice beefy 1050 injector dynamic injectors. And same concept, just go ahead and lubricate the O-rings on the bottom and top to ensure good fitment so they do not corrode and or rip. As you can see, injectors are in. Now let's go ahead and install our radium fuel rail very carefully. So I got these spacers, 1, 2, 3, already pushed in. This might take a couple tries, but I'm confident. Okay, so backtrack, I found it was actually much easier to first put the injectors into the fuel rail since the fuel rail sided O-ring is much bigger and thicker. So now just carefully line everything up. All right, and there we have it. Now let's go ahead and install our new bolts, which are going to be a 6mm Allen. All right, and now the torque specs on these bolts here call for 10 pounds, so this will give me a chance to use my new digital torque wrench. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everything is all installed, torqued to spec and looking good. This intake manifold is hot. I am really digging the green on the cast aluminum. Fuel pressure regulator mounted. I just went ahead and installed one of my fuel pressure sensors, put some thread lock on it. Now I just need to plug this guy up, and then once this is installed in the car, we'll go ahead and just run a 96 AN. And on that note, everybody, that concludes this video. I hope you learned a little bit about how to install the railing on the Greddy Plenum. I am slowly but surely learning as I go. This is all essentially new to me, and I'm having a great time learning, and I hope it helps you. Again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is about 80% of the feeling that I have. The rest of the parts I will order once we have the motor in the car, so I can order the correct micron fill filter, the correct length hoses, and the correct angle and fittings. So I'm incredibly stoked on that. And also, we do have some more parts that showed up the other day, but you'll have to wait till the next video to see. And actually also the next video I post will be my brother and I leaving to California. So in 3 days, we will finally be picking up the RB25 Neo, and that is when this build actually begins. So again, everybody, thank you again so much for the continued love and support. And if you're new to the channel too and want to hit the subscribe button, that'd be awesome. And remember, aim high, drive low. We'll catch next video. Take care.